Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good, maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and should remain in the depths of hell. Now, Monday, I discussed Rush Hour 2, and today we'll be discussing the final part in the Rush Hour Trilogy with Rush Hour 3, which came out on August 10th of 2007. Now, basically my history with this film is pretty much the same as all the other ones, where, especially a little bit with Rush Hour 2, where I heard a little bit about the first film, but then never heard anything about the sequels, really. And that they were just either okay or just bad overall. Or, well, just really just the fact that, like, they were just obviously not as good as the original. Now, if you guys remember my thoughts on Rush Hour 2, I did say that that film is weaker than the original, but still was an entertaining film that I feel like I would put on after watching the original. And I give it the same ranking as the original. Um, I'm just going to come out and say this right now. Rush Hour 3, in my opinion, is certainly the weakest out of the entire trilogy, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad film. There are a lot of points about it that I'm like, okay, yeah, that is not as good as the other films. So yeah, I can see, like, I can flat out say that this is I would say it is the weakest. I wouldn't say I mean, yeah, it's technically the worst out of the films, but again, it's not bad. But anyway, let's get on to the review itself. So this film was made with a budget of $140 million. Domestically, it only made over 140 million, and worldwide, it made over 258 million. So yeah, domestically, this film was a bomb. But worldwide, it was a success. Um, so yeah, so I don't know whether they're gonna be. I'm gonna start mentioning this right now, and just to get it done and over with. I don't know if they're gonna make a Rush Hour 4. There has been rumors, but I feel like with the domestic release of this film, especially, that people are may not be so interested in this series anymore, which is kind of honestly a shame because. Well, actually, I'll discuss my opinions on that a little bit more, but yeah, honestly, as of now, I don't know whether they're gonna be making a Rush Hour 4. Um, but I mean, I will be totally down to see one, but I just don't know if that's ever gonna happen. We'll see as time goes on, but for the time being, it looks like that this series is only gonna be a trilogy as of now. And obviously, this is again directed by Brett Ratner, who obviously directed the first two films, and so yeah. So what's going on with the plot? So East meets West again when the assassination of Ambassador Han, played by the returning Tiz Mao, leads to the reunion of Lee and Carter, played by Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, respectively. In Paris, the pair must stay one step ahead of Chinese gangsters and Lee's childhood friend Kenji, played by Hiroki Sanada, as they track down an envelope containing the identity of a powerful crime lord. Now, you know, again, this film isn't bad at all. In fact, this is actually very good. Like, I'm honestly kind of surprised that this was good, because I honestly thought that this film was just gonna be was just gonna think it's okay. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just right down the middle. But surprisingly, there was actually a lot about it that was good. There were, um, okay, I'll get to that later. But, um, I, you know, I don't really like how they treat, how they respect the first two, because like we literally just get a whole bunch of just like either side mentions or the characters are poorly used. Um so yeah. So as I've already said in the plot, uh Tins Mao returns as not Council Han, but an Ambassador Han this time. And he is there. I'm gonna say this. I think it's an attempted assassination because they do say after that scene has happened, when he's in the hospital, that he's gonna be all right, and then we really don't hear anything about it. So I don't really know if his character dies or not. And that's why. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I kind of want there to be a fourth film, is to see if his character actually survives or not. Because there's literally one scene of them saying, "Yeah, he's gonna be all right," and I don't think they ever mention in the entire film if he is still okay or he died. So if I'm wrong about that, anyone who has seen this film, put it in the comments down below. But if he is still alive, then I wouldn't mind seeing a Rush Hour 4 with him in it. Um, and this time there's only really like with the first film, there's only like two locations. There is LA, and then then they go to Paris in this film, where the first film it's initially the beginning of the first act takes place in Hong Kong, and then the rest of the film takes place in LA. The second film, it starts off in yeah, it starts off in Hong Kong, then we go back to LA, and then we go to Las Vegas. And then in this film, they start off in LA, and then they fly out to Paris for the remainder of the film. So, I mean, yeah, going back to basics, but um, honestly, by this point, it kind of felt samey, which a lot of film series have experienced before. Um, but even in this film, it's like they kind of use that in a good way. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but yeah, they use like the whole like using the kind of like the same formula to their advantage. Um and so yeah, okay. Uh um so yeah, I guess we'll just because there's yeah, so most of the film takes place in Paris because there's only like because yeah, like the most of the first act takes place in LA, if even, because I feel like it's more like the first act is half in LA and then half in Paris, and then the rest of the film is just Paris. So I can't. You know, I mean, granted, it's a new location compared to you know because in the second film we've already been to Hong Kong in the first film, even if it was brief, and then we get sent to back to LA, and then we're like, okay, we already seen that, and then Las Vegas for like not even the entire third act of the film. We only get to see like literally one building in Las Vegas. No, actually two in the second film because they go to that dress shop in Vegas, and then they go to the Red Dragon Casino, which is where the whole final act really takes place. Um, but yeah, like they don't even travel that much around Las Vegas anyway. So it's like, um, you know, I'm glad that they did kind of go back to the original where it's like it starts off in one location and then the rest of the film takes place in another location, so that it's not so like confined to like trying to cram in as much as possible. So I guess I gotta give them that. Um But with that being said, I guess let's go on to the cast. So we obviously have Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker returning as respectively and Detective James Carter, respectively. Again, both great, but even by this point, honestly, I can't really tell. It might just be hindsight, but honestly, Chris Tucker throughout all three films doesn't look like he ever ages. So I don't really know if that's just me or other people notice that, but I noticed that. Like even in this film, he looks like the same that he did in the second film. Where Jackie, on the other hand, you could clearly tell that he has aged between the first film. Like you can kind of tell between the first and the second film, but especially between the second film and this one, where it's like, damn, like he has aged like a lot. Um, that doesn't affect his performance, but it's just like really noticeable. As I already mentioned, well, well, uh, Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker do great as usual, and like I already mentioned earlier, Tisma returns as Ambassador Han. Only really for one scene because technically he there it's at the like the oh god. So yeah, it's the first scene at the meeting, and then he gets shot, and then literally for his other two scenes, he's laying down in a hospital bed. I think it's actually only one other scene. So it's like okay, but for literally the acting screen time that he's gotten, he did fine. We have Zhang Qingchu as Su Young. Now I want to stress this right now. I fucked up with the first review because I said that Su Young played Zing Qingchu, even though obviously now it's the other way around. So Zhang Jingchu plays Su Young. So that's a fuck up on my part. So if you go back to the first, right, if you go back to the first review, when I talk about her character, just switch the two names around because I completely fucked up on that part, and I only realized that when I was literally writing the script for this review, and I was like, oh shit, I I fucked up on that. So um, sorry for sorry for that fuck up, but yeah, if you go back to the first, if you ever go back to watch the first review, keep that in mind that accidentally switched the two names around. So there you go. But yeah, uh, I like the fact that they actually tied it in with the first film a lot. I mean, yeah, we only get Ambassador Han for like one or two scenes, but you know, Su Young is literally in basically the entire film. Like she pops up in the beginning, and then they save her life from these Chinese gang members, and then they go to Hong Kong. I think she, I think she either followed them or she was at she basically she arrives in Hong Kong and then turns up in the final action scene because she's captured. So it's like okay, well you're kind of just using the same plot now as literally as the original where you introduce these two, the daughter gets captured, and then Lee and Carter have to go and do something about it and save her. Admittedly, in this film, she does a lot more than in the original. But granted, that's just a given because obviously in the first film she's like 10 years old, and now in this she's like what? This is what 9 years at the original. So what? She's like either late teens or like a young adult, and she is kicking some ass in this film. Like you can literally take the hospital scene, and she's like literally kicking some ass in that. So you know, she's not going down without a fight, but again, obviously she is captured. We have Naomi Lenore as Genevieve, who also is okay. Well, spoilers here. Um, So yeah, basically, Lee and Carter are trying to look for this list because this person. At first, it's this person called oh fuck, I already forgot the name. Um, but no, but yeah, they're looking for this guy, for this person that has um that has like information that they need to know, that was talking to Han before he got shot at the beginning. So they're like, okay, well, they go around, they ask Kenji, or yeah, they ask Kenji. He doesn't tell them. Um, and then I think they ask a few other people. They don't know, and then they find um Renard, um, who basically explains to Lee that you know that this person is not a person after all. It's actually a list of like all these like Chinese games that will eventually get like I crown something. I forgot what it was. Um, but yeah, so now they're trying to find this person who has the list, and it turns out to be Genevieve, who in actuality is the guy that they're looking for, because um she, when we first see her in like the first few scenes that we see her in, she has this like beautiful like brownish gold hair, and then they take her to an apartment, and she's like, yeah, I'm the list, and they're like, wait, what? And then she grabs her hair and yanks it off, and it's actually a wig, because they basically shaved her head and tattooed the list onto the back of her head. So she is technically, so technically the list is a person, but it's a list tattooed onto a person. So they were like, okay, um, you know, they're like, okay, we just need to protect her, and then obviously all the rest of the crap happens throughout the entire film. Um, so yeah, and obviously I mentioned Kenji, played by Hiroku Sanada. He is technically the main villain, because every single film always uh has like a villain that they know from the beginning is like, okay, that's the villain, and then they have like a twist villain. With the first film, it's like the one British guy that's like, all right, I'm stealing all these artifacts and getting all this money. The second film, it was um like, I think it was like not like a childhood friend like in this one, but it was like a close friend to Carter, or to to Lee, and then it turns out that he's the bad guy. And then in this film, Kenji is obviously like the guy that they're like, okay, yeah, he's the bad guy. They obviously don't say it, but it's like, yeah, he's the bad guy. And then Renard is like the twist bad guy, um, who is played by Max von Sydow. Okay, then I was not expecting this to look at, like, I was literally looking this film up, and I just see Max von Sydow. I'm like, what the fuck? When did Max von Sydow play a role in a Rush Hour movie? But yeah, he plays Renard, and in the final scene, after Kenji dies, which technically he just committed suicide, but that's besides the point. Renard has Genevieve at gunpoint, and he's like, or no, he has her held hostage, and they're like, what are you gonna do? Just shoot us? And he's like, no, I'm gonna frame you guys. You guys killed Genevieve, and you're like, he's like, her brain's gonna get blown up for all like on the entire street, and then uh he's about to pull the trigger, and then a gun fires, and you don't know, like, did because it first sets it up like he shot Carter, because he looks down on his chest and he's like, oh, got it shot, and then you see him like stumbling forward. He falls into like the pool in front of him where they landed in from the climax. I'm gonna save that for later. and he falls into the pool, and then you see like the blood pop up. He's like, "Oh shit, he's dead." And you turn around, and there's a taxi driver that they had throughout the entire film, at least while they were in Paris. So it's like, oh, that's cool. Honestly, though, if I had to be completely honest about that, I was kind of disappointed about that because I honestly thought that it was gonna be Su Young that just pulled the trigger and like, yeah, like fuck you, man. But no, it was their taxi driver. Because yeah, I was honestly kind of expecting it to be Su Young. But no, it's his taxi driver. It's their taxi driver. But yeah, and then we have Yuki Kido as the Dragon Lady, who is the henchman to Kenji, I guess. Never. It's not like in the previous films where it's like kind of shown that like, oh yeah, so yeah, Sang is the like the well, because I know because technically Sang isn't technically a henchman. He's technically like the side villain. But yeah, and like in the second film they had like that woman that was the trying to kill them, and then in this film it's another lady, uh, different actor. It's a completely different character. She's fine. I don't think she's as good as the lady in the second film, but all right then. Oh, we have Yvonne Atel as George, who is the taxi driver that I was mentioning earlier. He is fantastic. Where he's like the first scene they get in the taxi, and they ask him like, okay, go here, and like obviously they didn't say go here, but they said like a location, but I forgot the name of it. They're like, okay, go to this location, and he's like, no. I'm like, why? And he goes, I don't drag that kind of people. And he points to Carter, and he's like, all right. And then they start having this bickering, and Carter pulls out a gun, and he's like, yeah, all right, let's go. And then like I think they sing like the national anthem together, and I was like, what the fuck? But yeah, and then um and then the first car chase that they have where he's like, like, come on, let's go. And he's like, I can't. And he's like, okay. And the car comes up to you. He's like, okay, pretend you're an American spy. And he's like, I'm an American spy. I'm an American spy. And he just all of a sudden starts going for it. Like he starts like drifting and shit. And he's like, whoa. Um. So yeah, but and then uh, when they got Genevieve, he pulls up and um, he's like, all right, I'm gonna help you guys and blah 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 and stuff like that. And then obviously at the end he shoots Renard in the back, so it's like, oh shit. Um, and then we have I think this is the first time I'm mentioning this guy, which I didn't even realize it was him until I started doing research for this film. Roman Polanski, or Pulaski, or Polanski. Roman Polanski. There. Who plays Detective Revi, or Revi. He is, honestly, in the film, he does okay with the role, with the scenes that he's given. And the less said about him, the better. If you guys want to figure out why I'm not talking about him that much, look up his name on Google and you will most likely find out. Simple explanation. He was let's say he was convicted of child molestation. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on from that. No, but when no, fuck, I just made myself look real weird. um. All right, so I guess favorite scenes. Um. I guess like the final fight at the Eiffel Tower, because that scene was honestly a really cool. That was like about like a 20-minute sequence from Lee taking Genevieve up to where Kenji asked to meet them or to bring her, and then they start having a sword fight, and then Genevieve pulls off the wig. Oh no, because he's like I got no one, and now you got no one. And then you just hear Carter go bullshit, and you turn around. They turn around, and it's like, oh yeah. Honestly, that was kind of like the way that they set it up. It was like, okay, yeah, no, it is. It's not her because it's like they have it's covered in shadows. You can't see Genevieve's face, so it's like, okay, yeah, it's got to be like Carter or someone. And yeah, and then I was right. I was like, oh yeah, I knew it. It was Carter. So yeah, and then we have yeah, but yeah, just that entire sequence from them going from them coming up, start having the sword fight, and then Lee fighting Kenji while Carter is taking out the henchman and then trying to save Su Young, who and then the Dragon Lady shows up. They she drops the rope, uh, and then Carter catches the rope, catches Su Young, and Su Young just takes her into the like the big ass cog that's like I forget I don't even know what that's for on the Eiffel Tower, but yeah, they kick her into the cog and obviously they don't show it because it's a PG-13 movie. Yeah, you can imagine that she just gets just cut up right there. And then yeah, Kenji commits suicide, and then like henchmen start popping up, and they send Su Young down the elevator, and then have and then they have Lee and Carter take I think it's a French flag and use it as a parachute, and then land into the water, and then that's when the whole final confrontation between them two and Renard happens, and then obviously yeah he gets shot in the back. Um, But yeah, well, I guess to go on to the fun facts and this the score. Did you know that when Lee is speaking to Kenji in I believe well, because the yeah in the alley and then in the sewers in the film, they're actually speaking Japanese. It's not Chinese. Um, so yeah, it's not Chinese that they're speaking. It's actually Japanese. I didn't even realize until I did research. I don't know honestly if this is necessarily true or not, but if it is, that's surprising. And this one caught me. This one when I read this, I was like, okay, no, I have to mention this because this is actually kind of funny. That even though Lee's character says in the film I don't speak French because when they capture the one of the henchmen that comes to kill Han in the hospital, uh, it's like initially they think he's speaking Chinese, and then Ali comes up and he's like, I think he's speaking French, and he's like, how the hell you know he's speaking French? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just guessing. And then they bring him into like a back room, and he's like, can you speak French? And he's like, I don't know how to speak French. And then they bring in the nun, and then that whole funny scene happens. But yeah, even though Lee says, I don't speak French, Jackie, in actuality, Jackie speaks fluent French. Uh huh. uh, but, yeah. And then the music was, again, composed by Lalo Schifrin, who did the music for the previous two films and obviously did the score for, one of the best martial arts films of all time, Enter the Dragon. This film, I would put it on par with the other soundtracks in the trilogy. It's again like it's like a song. It's a soundtrack where like with the film it's great, but listening to it by itself is just like it's all right. Um, Actually about the soundtrack, I didn't write this down initially, but this is the only film in the entire in the trilogy that does not have a song by Michael Jackson in it. The first one is in the first film it's Another Part of Me. In the second film, it's "Don't Stop Until You Get Enough," and then yeah, in this film there is no Michael Jackson song on the soundtrack, but in the opening scene with Carter, he is doing some Michael Jackson moves to a Prince song for some reason. So it's like, uh huh. Um. So yeah. That was honestly a bit disappointing to find out that there's no Michael Jackson songs on the soundtrack for this film. But yeah, so that's so final thoughts on Rush Hour 3. As I mentioned before, this is certainly, in my opinion, the weakest out of the trilogy. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is a bad film. In fact, this is actually a really great movie. I would honestly put this up with the other Rush Hour films as a great film to watch. In fact, actually, let me look at this real quick. In fact, if you really want to watch all of them, they are very, very short. The first one's actually the longest out of the entire trilogy, and actually the third film is the shortest. So yeah, the first film is at 98 minutes, the second film is at 90, and then this film is at 86 minutes. So yeah, but yeah, if you honestly like want to watch a trilogy like nice and quick, Rush Hour Trilogy is honestly a great trilogy to watch. It's nice and quick, it has great plots throughout all of them, and it's a very enjoyable watch. But as I said earlier, this is the weakest out of the trilogy. Um, but again, it's not a bad film at all. So that's why I'm gonna give this film a B plus. Well, yes, one rank lower than the previous two films. So yeah. So anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Russell's Movie Reviews. Click over here on my profile picture to go check out my channel, or just click down on my username down there, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon to get notified when future videos are coming out. And click over here to click on the latest two videos. So, as you guys can tell by the title, this is episode 99, which means the next one is episode 100. And you guys may be asking, what film are you going to discuss for episode 100? Well, I'll actually be right back. I'll give you guys a little sneak peek at uh at what this title, what episode 100 will be about. So, not to reveal too much. Let's see. That's all you get. So, if you guys are fans of that little franchise, you guys may recognize it. But I'll keep that as a surprise until the uh the episode's released, and then I'll release a little I'll release a little teaser before that episode's released. But anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Russell Movie Reviews, and stay tuned for next Saturday for the big old 100th episode of Russell's Movie Reviews. Live long and prosper. Out.